So it's not that the Rebbe has this incredible Bekias and he's the answer man. You can ask him any question and he can pull out an answer. Not the point. The point is that anybody can ask the Rebbe, hey, this is what's going on in my life, and the Rebbe cares and has insight. Like, that's the mind-blowing thing.
This episode is brought to you by Machne Yisrael. As Yud Aleph Nissan comes and we prepare to write panim to the Rebbe, there's another integral component to a pan, which is called the May pan. If you want to learn more about what this is, stay tuned later in the episode. I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Der Herr, an ongoing Farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day.
Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Taub, how are you?
I was waiting to hear those magic words. You're famous for it.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, do you really we want to know how I am? Or it's a formality?
The short version, yeah.
Short version, okay. I'm thrilled to be here talking with you. I was wondering when my chance would come.
Okay.
There's so much that I've been holding back and I've been waiting for some Pearson Rishon.
Exactly. Okay, so thank you so much. And we're actually sitting in your studio.
Yes. But,
so thank you for hosting
me.
This
is not my podcast. This is your podcast.
Okay, excellent.
I'm your guest.
So this is a special recording and a special podcast that we're doing that's going to be released on Yud Aleph Nissan. So that's when people are listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
And Yud Aleph Nissan is obviously a day when every chassid and everyone is looking to connect to the Rebbe. I think that's what we'll talk about.
Okay.
And I would like to begin. I know there's a
You don't always talk about connecting to the Rebbe? What else do you talk about?
Yeah, but now we're actually addressing it.
How to do it, yeah.
There's a special project that you have been involved in and working on and teaching, which is, I believe it's called 30 Letters, 30 Days.
30 Letters in 30 Days, yeah.
Which is about learning the Rebbe's Igris, which is obviously, we're talking about the Rebbe, let's talk about, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, 30 days, there's a concept of Shloshim Yom Lifnei Chag, right? The concept 30 days before any Yom Tov, you start to prep for the Yom Tov. So you don't just go in and expect everything's going to happen automatically. You have to put in your work. So we came up with this concept a number of years ago to prepare properly for Yud Aleph Nissan. Now, when it comes to Yud Aleph Nissan, we know that Rebbe expressed pretty clearly what his wishes were as far as birthday gifts, gifts of Torah study. So any Torah is beautiful. You can learn a Maimer, you can learn a Masechta, but obviously learning the Rebbe's Torah itself has a special cheshivas, a special importance. And then I had an agenda, which was specifically learning the Rebbe's Igros, because I felt that it was something that had been undervalued. People, of course, the whole world knows about the Rebbe's Torah. The world, thank God, today, I'm saying today. Because in the past, maybe people knew more about other aspects of the Rebbe, the Avos Yisrael, Shlichus, even Mofsim, miracles. Today, Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe's Torah is very well known. Obviously, could be even more well known, but mostly the Sichas and the Maimarim. What I felt was undervalued and underrecognized was the Igros as a form of actual learning. You get around, you talk to a lot of people. Have you found that to be the case? You told me before we started that you're going to be quiet and ask me questions. And I warned you. I said, I'm going to get you to say interesting stuff. What have you found? Do you find that people are aware that Igros is a real serious limud, something to learn?
You might be. I think you're right. Generally, it's not seen that way. Could be the circles that I hung out in. There was an emphasis on that. I personally have read many Igros. Allah Seder. Actually, whenever I bring people to the oil, that's what I do then. Before we're going, we want to learn something from the Rebbe. That's what I always
learn a letter.
I learn a letter from the Rebbe, always.
Any letter, or you have certain letters you like to go to?
No, anything.
It's beautiful. Yeah. When I started 30 Letters in 30 Days, there were people, I mean, like unsere, like Chabad, were like, what are you going to learn? What are you going to, Shalom Abrocha in Brooklyn, New York, like, Meine Amachtove, like, what are you going to, because they're thinking of it like, unfortunately, like, a formality, kind of like, okay, like you read the letter under the chuppah, you read the letter the bris, right? It's a nusach. Which, by the way, even those letters, it's not just a nusach. Everything there is exact and precise. But there's a special connection to the Rebbe's worldview that really, in some ways, you can only get through Igros. What I mean by that is this. In the Sichos, you see Lomdus, you see the Rebbe's depth as far as Torah scholarship. My modem is obviously more the Pnimius HaTorah, the Chassidus, the mystical concepts. And everything that Rebbe teaches always is, Hero, like, Torah Maloshin Hero, right? Everything is practical. But in Igros, you actually see the practical. Like you see the practical on a whole other level, because I was writing to a real person with a real situation, that I was spelling it out how it's going to look in this person's life. And it's the same Rebbe. It's the same Rebbe who says the Maimorim and the Sichos, but now you're seeing how that Rebbe spells it out and applies it to a real person's situation. And there's something really, really powerful in that. The Rebbe spoke about the Gemara, like, right? It takes 40 years till you really learn what the master was talking about. And the Rebbe made several diyukim about that. But one of the diyukim is, what does it mean? He stands up, he becomes sufficient, he becomes not just repeating words that he heard, but he can pick it up and run with it. But also, in a similar vein, daitoi. It's not just the deus. It's not just, what was the Rebbe's opinion about this? What was the Rebbe's opinion about that? Daitoi means the same mind, the same worldview that arrived at this concept, you can use to understand all concepts. So if the goal of a chassid is not just to know what the Rebbe said, but to understand how did the Rebbe arrive at it? What are the values that the Rebbe is teaching us as tools to apply to understanding different situations? If it's not just about knowing the Rebbe said this, the Rebbe said that, and which is very important, and obviously having familiarity with the different subjects that the Rebbe spoke about and when the Rebbe spoke about. And one of the things Deher does beautifully, by the way, does many things beautifully. One of the things I love about Deher is charting historically the evolution of a concept. That's one of the things I love, where it'll show like how the Rebbe took a theme and developed it over years. Like, I love that. But when you see it in a letter to a person about a life, a woman who's a mother with children, or a teacher who's working with youth, or like a businessman who's worried about he's not going to have food to feed his family, and someone who's going in for an operation, like real life issues. All of that approach, that tzugang, the way of looking at life, how to look at something, how to approach something, and you're seeing it in real life, that's when, for me at least, it becomes so real. And that's, to me, one of the things about Igros that makes the connection to the Rebbe through Torah. Obviously, the famous letter that Rebbe said that the Iker Hiskashrus is through Limud, right? What's Goydel Chukal Hiskashrus, right? The great yearning for Hiskashrus. First, maybe we have to back up and say, how do you get the chukka? Okay. But let's say that you do have the chukka, that you can't satiate it except by learning the Torah, right? So the Iker Hiskashrus is through Torah. But yeah, the Igros is It's a whole other level.
What I
Yeah.
think you're saying, I understand, is that
Yeah.
in general, people have a dilemma in life, or they're trying to figure out what their next move should be,
Yeah.
something like that. So people might be in the dark, like, what would the Rebbe tell me?
Right. Right.
Now, if you're educated and you educate yourself through the Rebbe's Torah B'chlal, and
Right.
specifically through the Igris, you're able to approach many things in life, and by the way, advise others with the Rebbe's look
Right.
at things. And it's not one letter, it's something that you picked up over many letters that you learned.
Correct.
And that's something that you're talking about, that's something that you
Right.
can gain in the Rebbe's Torah B'chlal, and specifically through Igris, that type of clarity.
Right. How would the Rebbe look at something? Meaning, not theoretically, based on what the Rebbe taught, what the Rebbe put out there.
And you're only getting that through learning the Igris.
And I don't think a lot of people know also that it was the Rebbe himself who pushed.
So actually,
Igris.
people don't know yet. I mean, people know about this, but there will be a future podcast where I interviewed Rabbi Bar 11.
Oh, wow.
And in that interview, he spells out and talks about specifically how the Rebbe instructed him to publish the Rebbe's Igris. It was not his idea.
Right.
He had never thought of doing that. He was doing the previous Rabbeim. He thought, they're printing the Kodesh Sichos. What does that have to do with his work with the Igris Kodesh? He did Igris Kodesh on the previous Rabbeim, and it came straight from the Rebbe.
Right.
The Rebbe sent him a stack of letters. Start with this. See if there's anything to print, and that's how the whole project began.
Right.
And there's also a story. I don't know if it's a true story. Apparently, the Rebbe asked if people are learning it. You familiar with
I
the
heard
story?
the story. Yeah, but yeah, if they're learning the Igris, right.
And I think it was the Rebbe Groner, right? Is that correct?
It could also be. I heard something. Rabbi Simpson was involved.
Oh, he said the story in a speech in 770.
Correct. Yeah. That I told the Rebbe that in Morristown there's a say that
Teferis.
right. In Teferis there was a say at which. Let's just pause here a second. Between you and me, I mean, nobody's listening to this, I'm sure, right? But the fact that the Rebbe is asking, are people learning Igris? And the one report is that they're learning in one yeshiva. I mean, it's, I don't want to, say negative, but.
And what did the Rebbe say?
What did
the Rebbe said?
Remind me.
If I remember correctly. The fact that the Bachram are doing it, okay, but what about the Balabatim?
Right. So clearly, the Rebbe said right there that it wasn't enough.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's never too late, and we could always catch up. That's one of the things you learn from the Rebbe, that even if you messed up in the past, don't wallow in that. Just get to work and do things right in the future.
So what are you doing now? So you're learning the Igris. What is this project?
So we learn a letter every night, 30 letters in 30 days. Kipshute, like that's what the name is. That's what we do. How do we pick them? You know what? There was a whole big discussion when we started the first year. When I say we, Be'ikar, I mean Levi Shem Tov West Bloomfield, who was the main push. And he's someone who went through the entire Igris. I'm not saying he's the only one who's ever gone through, but he made us see him recently on the whole Igris. And we had a discussion, should we try to pick like famous letters, let's say letters to famous people, letters that bring out like a really big, what we would consider a big idea in the Rebbe's worldview? And the conclusion was no, let's not try to pick big letters. Let's just go through a year, because the letters are chronological. Pause for a second. I just want to say why they're chronological, because this also adds to what we were saying before, that the Rebbe is the one who initiated and continued pushing, urging, more halakim should come out. When Rabbi Levin, I don't know if you asked him this question or if he brought this up, but when he asked the Rebbe, how should we organize the Igris? Should we do it thematically or should we do it chronologically? Did you speak about that with him?
I did.
Right. So the Rebbe told him, whatever can come out faster.
Correct.
So he said chronological is easier to do. I guess because it's like simpler. You already have, just go in order. Thematically, you got to, I guess there's more shikol hadas, there's more organization that takes place. But at any rate, so it's all chronological. So what happens is you're getting a year, and we're going in order. So, you start in Tishrei, you go to Cheshvan, and you're going through a year. What happens is you get a slice of life. So some letters are famous. Like we already have picked out the letters we're going through. So for instance, the letter that we're going to finish off, the 30th letter, An Yud Auf Nissen, right? And we're going to do an event in the Soulwords house. Our opening event of the Soulwords house was a year ago. An Yud Auf Nissen was the 30th letter of last year's 30 letters. So Mitzvah Hashem will be doing the same thing again this year. this year, the 30th letter happens to be from the same chelik we've been going through, which is chelik good base, a letter that Rebbe wrote on Yud Aleph Nissan Tafshin Tez Zayin, which happens to be a famous letter to the president of Israel. Right, so that's famous because that's the Rebbe giving a very the unusual glimpse. Yeah, like it started to take form in my mind. But that's famous because, first of all, it's unusual that I was giving such a personal glimpse into his personal life. It's famous because it's very strong about Mashiach, and it's also emotionally very compelling. I'm going to thank Hashem for all.
And it's the famous person.
And it's a famous person. There's a lot about it that's famous, but that's not what we're doing. We're doing it because we're just going through that volume. But the point is, when you go through a volume and you're going through the year, and some letters are to famous people. Some letters are to people who, like we had a letter a few nights ago to Eliezer Steinman. Now, to me, I'm an American boy. That's not a famous name. But anyone who's Israeli, he's one of like the big authors of modern Hebrew. And he was a very influential person. And, so he's a famous person. And then there are letters to like just Bachrim. Like, can you imagine that? Some Bacher is struggling with keeping Seder. And he's writing to the Nasi Adar, and he's getting an answer. Like, to me, that itself is mind-blowing.
I've been reading a lot of the English letters recently, which is a whole nother world.
Yes. We don't really do the English letters because we're going through Igros.
Right, so I happen to be doing
but
that.
I love English letters.
And you see the same recipient getting letters continuously, and they're trivial. I mean,
right. What we would call trivial. Right.
I mean, they're things that the guy could have asked as mashpia.
Right.
And the Rebbe is having a whole correspondence and guiding this guy, through yeshiva, through whatever it is, and it's just fascinating to see. The Nasi how they're doing that.
And also, I want to just bring this out because I tried to bring it out on my live stream, and I don't know if I made the point that I was trying to make. I think some people misunderstood it. I think they were getting from me the opposite of what I was trying to say. Letters to women, not just to women, adult women, but girls, single girls, like a girl who's teaching. I don't know how old she was, if she was 18, 19, 20, whatever. The point is, who else in the history of the Jewish people was what? I mean, even setting aside all the Chassidish ways, like I'm just saying, G'dei Yisrael, spending time in correspondence with literally everyone, like to the point where some single girl is asking advice about her teaching job, and she's getting like lengthy answers. I'll tell you something. This is a Pearson Rishon. I have to be very careful how I say this. I was once speaking to a young lady, a single girl from I guess I can say from a Litvische background, and very, very intelligent, very well read. She was not ignorant about Lubavitch. She had done her research. She said to me, I saw a thing from Tzivos Hashem. It bothered me. It said something about take the kids, make the Rebbe proud, give the Rebbe menachas, something like that. So she says, this is very weird to me because these kids are all born after 1994. They were born after Gimel Tammuz. And you're telling them that these kids should have like a feeling of some type of a relationship with the Rebbe where like they're trying to make the Rebbe proud. Like make your mommy proud, make your tati proud, make your teacher proud, like the Rebbe proud. So she said, that's weird to me. I'm just telling you, it's weird to me. So she says, like for instance, I believe, and here's where I'm going to be super careful, so-and-so is the Gadol Ador. She named a particular figure who I think many, many, many people would agree would give him that title, Gadol Ador. Like that's not the controversial part. I believe so-and-so is the Gadol Ador. And this was a living person. It's a living person at the time. She says, I don't think he knows who I am. I don't think he cares who I am. And I would certainly not be motivated if someone told me to do something because it'll make him happy. I really don't think he's keeping track of what I do. I don't remember what I answered her. I remember afterwards unpacking that because it affected me very, very deeply. It was like a reality check. It was a reminder of something that we take for granted. Because for you and me, the Gadol Adar means, I mean, what's the Rebbe? Reish Beis Yod, Rosh Bnei Yisrael, right? Like the head of the body, and it feels even what's going on in the toe. And like for us, what's the definition? Who's the Nasi? A Nasi hu HaKoil, right? Who is the leader of Klal Yisrael is the one who's connected to every Yid, even children, everybody, right? And she's coming to me, and she's got an entirely different definition of the Gadol Adar. To the extent that that's not even part of his requirements. Mm. It's not even. And then I was thinking to myself, like, then what makes? Because it's so funny. It's like shows my bias here. Because I'm thinking to myself, I actually had to stop and think to myself, why is she calling this particular person Gadol Adar when she? Not only is she saying he doesn't know me, he doesn't even care to know me, right? And that she freely bestows upon him the title of Gadol Adar. So I realized that the distinction that by them, or maybe by most of the Torah world, the Gadol Adar is defined by what he knows. The guy who knows the most, he's the Gadol Adar. He knows the most. So it's defined by what he knows. And by us, Gadol Adar is defined by who he knows. It's that he knows every Yid, he cares about every Yid. That's the Gadol Adar. It's a completely different definition. But getting back to Igris. So it's not that the Rebbe has this incredible Bekias and he's the answer man. You can ask him any question and he can pull out an answer. Not the point. The point is that anybody can ask the Rebbe, hey, this is what's going on in my life, and the Rebbe cares and has insight. Like, that's the mind-blowing thing. That the Rebbe is answering people, and he has what to answer, and he's relating to them, and he's pushing them, but he's also encouraging them, and he's gentle, but he's firm. It's like, like the classic discussion. If you had a Farbrengen, maybe this is not a 3 a.m. conversation, but more like a 1 a.m. conversation. There's levels. Like there's 9 p.m., which you probably
skip.
don't. Yeah, you skip that. You don't show up for the 9 p.m. That's the thing. Get the formal, formalities out of the way. Now 11 p.m. you might get like a little bit of, and then 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Okay, so this is like a 1 a.m. discussion. Like the Rebbe, Melech or Tate, right? Avinu Malkeinu. Okay, so they're both, right? Is a chassid Eved or Ben? Like it talks about in Samach Vav. And then, obviously, like every discussion in Torah, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, there's truth in both. But Melech means, hisnasus. He's up there on his throne and he's running the whole melucha. He's got this massive operation, the whole weight of the world on his shoulders, and that's all true, right? And there's a certain hispilus you can have just thinking about that, right? But then there's Tate, there's the Rebbe as a caring father who knows about your life, wants to hear about your life. To me, the craziest thing in the Holy Igros, and it's in probably thousands of times, and every time I see it, it blows my mind, is the Rebbe is not only telling people, I'm happy to have received, right? Normally, it's pleasant for me to receive your letter, because I'm like, every time I have a new email pop up, I'm like, please, I have 20,000 unread emails. Don't. Not only is that, but the Rebbe is saying, why don't you write me more?
Man Rav.
Right, it's been so long. I'm thinking to myself, Rebbe, please, they might take you seriously. They're going to bother you. Like, don't ask. But the Rebbe's like, no, I want to hear from you more. That's the wild thing. I one time was at a Shava Brachas of a relative, not Lubavitch. There was a Shava Brachas in Manhattan, the Karlbach Shul. This is 25 years ago. I wasn't married. I was still a bacher, so this is 26 years ago. Remember, I took the subway. I was in 770. I took the subway from Crown Heights. I went to Manhattan, and the Shava Brachas for my cousin. So I was the only Lubavitcher there. And there was a guy, an older guy. He was older then. This was in the 90s. He was, older then. I don't know if he's still with us, but he turns to me and he says to me, "You're Lubavitcher." I was the only Lubavitcher there. So he says, "I want to tell you something. I used to have yichidus with the Rebbe quite often." He says, "I used to do business in Jamaica. And whenever, by the way, I told this story once at a Gimel Thomas Farbrengen. And the shliach there in Jamaica now, Raskin, said he was driving and he heard this, like, punked right at that moment. He said he was like going to some far-flung place and he was thinking, I don't have time for this. Yeah. And then he heard that and he was like, I got to go. Okay. So the guy's telling me, yeah, I used to have a lot of yichidus with the Rebbe because I would go to Jamaica on business. This is in the 50s. And whenever I would come back, if I would come to 770, I would say, I have reports about the Jewish community. Who's the Jewish community in Jamaica? Maybe 150, 200 Yidden who were, a lot of them intermarried, very assimilated. It wasn't like, very, I don't know how to say it in a nice way, so I just won't say it. But you can imagine the situation there. So he said he would come back from Jamaica and he would report what's going on with the Jews there. And that I would always fast track him in. And I said to him, now I look back how silly this was. I said to him, I said, "You're not a Lubavitcher, so why did you go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe to tell the Rebbe about these things?" He looks at me shocked. Then he laughs. And he says, "Who else would care?" And I stop and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's right. Who else would care? You're going to go to some Rosh Hashiva and be like, I need to tell you about 150 intermarried people in the Caribbean. This is what you have to tell me. We're running a shiva over here, right?" The reality check, the reminder.
Yeah. It reminds me that there's the famous group of Lubavitch Chassidim that used to be Satam Chassidim. They became Lubavitch.
Right.
In the Mems. So I heard from I didn't hear from them. This is secondhand, but someone told me that he heard from one of them that after the whole controversy and after he became a Lubavitcher, many years later, after Gimel Tammuz, his father says, "Hey, by the way, I was in the Yichidus with the Rebbe." And he's like, "What? You never told me that after all these years?" It's like, "Yeah, what do you mean? Everyone used to go
right.
in the Yuds who who cares?
Who else? Right.
Who would care? Who would want to see us?" I just met someone in Stanford just told me that his father in the Yuds was with a bunch of Litvische Bachrim. They came to New York, and they went to the Rebbe. And they started. His mama, she said, "It's Yud Aleph, Yud Beis," and they just to speak to the Rebbe and learning. And the Rebbe took them. I just want to say that though, that back to the point about that person that was comparing the Rebbe,
that girl.
Yeah, that girl. Yeah. So first of all, there's a Hayom Yom. It talks about what's the difference between the Rosh Hashiva and the Ram. And before the Rosh Hashiva was Elend and the Ram was Elend, and now we're not alone. I think that's that concept that there's a connection between the Chassidim and the Rebbe, but also that point of that connection that the Rebbe has with the people. So there's this conversation that you speak to people that were Bachram in the Mems, and they'll tell you that there was a raid. There's a question that some people would ask. They were considered like a shvachere would ask, "Does the Rebbe know me?"
Right.
That was a whole dilemma.
How could you even wonder?
Because the Elam was growing, and there weren't igris like this. That stopped. There weren't letters like this. And there's a much bigger crowd, and that became a dilemma. Does the Rebbe know me? That was today we talk about how could we connect to the Rebbe after Gimel Tammuz. So then those that liked asking questions said, how could we connect to the Rebbe? Right. But the whole question is assuming that the Rebbe has to have this personal connection with you, and that's a foreign concept to someone else. But
so you're saying that even asking that question shows that that's part of your assumption, of course.
What a Nasi Adair is and what the Rebbe is. But it is interesting to me that the Rebbe, there was a shift. First of all, after Memches, the Rebbe spoke about what to do when you can't ask the Rebbe, Shvein Shel Olam,
Right.
that Sikha. But there's a Sikha, the Rebbe says, why is everyone looking to ask questions? So the Rebbe pushed back a little bit on that. I think in the later years, the Rebbe says that you go to the Mashpia, there's a Sikha, it's on video, you go to the Mashpia to ask what to ask.
Right.
And the Rebbe says, das ist nicht der Chinuch von Temchet Temimim. The Rebbe says, das ist nicht der Chinuch von Beis Rivka.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rebbe pushed back on that a little bit. And I'm wondering if that connects to our time today. I don't know. What do you think about that?
But yeah, well, asking questions just to ask. So I think every teacher, every educator has this frustration. It's like you're asking questions just because you want to have a question, right? But there's something in the Igros you see fairly often. We had it twice in the past the 30 letters in 30 days that we're doing. It's a Gemara from Rosh Hashanah. It's a Machlekes Tanaim about the shape of the shofar. So one says you should have a straight shofar. One says you should have bent. Straight shows you straightening your ways. Bent shows you're subjugating yourself to Hashem. So one says the straight one should be Rosh Hashanah, the curved one should be Yom Kippur. The one says fakert, curved, and Rosh Hashanah, straight on. But the lashon there is called the poshit ma'litvei. Whatever straight goes better. And the immediate context there is talking about the shape of a shofar, or even if you say it's not talking about literally about a shofar, I mean, it's also talking literally about a shofar, but it's speaking about in terms of avodah. You're saying what should be the approach on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. But the Rebbe generalizes it and says it's a general rule, like klal gadol b'Torah, basically, that if you're trying to figure out how to live, what to do, you're doubtful, you have questions, call the poshit ma'litvei. Whatever's simpler, just simplify it. Don't complicate it. Keep it simple. And it's not that, we're not thoughtful people. Chassidus Chabad, it's Chochmah bin Adas. It's Havana Vasaga. We're very thoughtful people. And we learn and we think, and we're misbeinen. But that's about thinking about Hashem, to deepen our connection to Hashem. When it comes to life, don't make problems. Just look in front of you, see what you need to do, and just do it, and don't complicate it by wondering, should you be doing something different? Just do the thing in front of you. Repetition, routine. So I think that maybe that's a little bit of what that is. Like, why are you making up questions? Why are you trying to make yourself confused? Yeah.
But I think it also highlights the first point that you're saying.
What?
To learn the Igros. The Rebbe published the Igros. I think the Rebbe wants a chassid to build a worldview based on the Rebbe.
Yeah, no question.
I think that's the message. That's really the message over here.
Well, there's a certain assumption that Rebbe has that his chassidim have a certain amount of clarity. Chassidei Chabad. You're not just a chassid in that, whatever else. You're a chassid and you learn how to think like a chassid. There's a certain worldview. So it's not just Maimorim and Sichas, it's day-to-day life. There's a certain way of thinking. So, yeah, there will be questions. And like you say, there was that tkufa where the Rebbe started speaking about if you need guidance and a Selech Harav. That was, a big thing. But just connecting that also with Igros. You mentioned, I don't know if Rabbi Levin told you this, but he said a speech in 770 that was at the siyum of one of the halakim. I don't remember which one it was, but I believe that following that speech, the Rebbe asked to put a mavai in Chelik Yud Aleph. No, I'm not remembering. He was putting a mavai.
He wrote
for the earlier halakim because there was more like history that was context, like historical context. Then after you start getting to the first few years of the Nesias, like he didn't feel there was new historical context to give, so he stopped writing the mavai, the intro. And then he gave this certain speech in 770, and the Rebbe told him you should write the mavai again. And so he put that speech into the mavai. What did he say? He said something that if he had said it on his own, it would still be geschmack, but you would say, who knows? But the fact that this became the mavai of a chelik of Igros, now it has like canonical verification, validation. He said a word like this, that just like, okay, so first of all, Selech Harav, the Rebbe said you should have a mashpia, but also in conjunction with that, the Rebbe is putting out the Igrus. Why? Because just like the Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya, and he writes, Rabbi Levin told you this?
He didn't say it, but it's printed in his book.
Okay.
This whole
So
thing.
just like the Alter Rebbe had a Tanya, and he writes in Hagdamas Malakit the purpose of the Tanya. You don't have to wonder why he wrote the book. He tells you why he wrote it. He says that these are the conversations that I've had with people in Yechidus. It's not shaykh that I should have everyone come to me one-on-one. He says, first of all, people forget what I told them. So, I'm telling them multiple times. But now we're going to record it. And if you're not able to figure out where to find your answer, every answer is in here. If you don't know, you ask your local mashpia. He's going to help you to find it. So Rabbi Levin said, just like the Alter Rebbe had Tanya, the Rebbe has the Igros. Now, again, if a chassid said that on his own initiative, it would still be geschmack and it would be something worthy of repeating. The fact that it is in the Mavei of the Rebbe's Igros, with the Rebbe's Sharblat, the Rebbe accepted this concept that the Igros are the Rebbe's Tanya. How many people know that the Igros are the Rebbe's Tanya? I don't think that's known. I think people, are we allowed to talk? Can we be real here?
You
can edit it out
I don't know
if
if it's
I'm
going to
too-
work.
I think a lot of people know about Igros, about randomly opening a page, and I don't have an opinion on that, honestly. Randomly opening a page in order to get an answer. We don't have to guess why the Rebbe wanted Igros printed. The Rebbe was very vocal about it. First of all, we don't have to guess if the Rebbe wanted the Igros printed. The Rebbe was the one who made the whole thing happen. But secondly, we don't have to guess why the Rebbe wanted it. The Rebbe wanted us to learn it. What does learning it mean? It means, and I want to be careful how I say this, Goy Lagro and Hashgacha Pratis and all those things, and if that's how somebody wants to. But how about this? How about this? The Rebbe gave us a window how to look at almost every practical issue that a person could face in life at every phase of life, and gave us hundreds of examples of each of these things, whether it's making a living, or it's health, or it's raising kids, or it's marriage, or spiritual issues, or whatever it is. And if you'll just learn these letters, it will train you how to think. Just like if you'll learn enough of the Rebbe's sichas, like Nigla sichas, let's say, Rashi sichas. I'll give an example. If you learn 20 Rashi sichas, it'll change the way you learn Chumash Rashi. There's no question, right? You'll maybe you won't be an expert in the methodology, although the Rebbe wanted that. The Rebbe would always ask, where are the ha'adas? Where are the articles from the Chassidim? Like, I'm teaching you the klalim. Like, in fact, the Rebbe, I saw at least a few times where the Rebbe said, last week I taught a certain klal, and then this week it came up in Chitas, and I thought I would have pouring in people finding that and asking that question. Nobody did it. So the Rebbe's like, I'm teaching a methodology over here. What do you think? You're just supposed to memorize what I said? Don't tell me what I said. I know what I said. Use the methodology to figure out things that I didn't say. So even if you learn Rashi sichos, you will look at Rashi completely differently. You will learn it because you'll what's bothering Rashi here? What is he answering? Why is he saying? Why is he mentioning why is he using those words particularly? Well, why does he say the name of the Tana? Or whatever, the different things you learn from the Rebbe's Klalim. Well, would you think that a chassid should say, I don't know how to learn Chumash Rashi, the way that Rebbe taught, but I can repeat to you Rashi Sichas Shaka V'Tari Bal Peh. I would say that's beautiful, but you think you've gone all the way with it, right? So to simplify it, it's not just what did the Rebbe say, it's how did the Rebbe say it. It's not just the what. Don't just repeat to me what the Rebbe said. Tell me how did the Rebbe say it. And by that I don't just mean the signon, the tone, which also I'm saying that as well. But I'm saying like the process. How did the Rebbe arrive at it? You don't think you can learn a derech halimud? You don't think the Rebbe has a distinct, learnable derech halimud in Nigla Chassidus and day-to-day life? I mean, it's very open and charted, and Maramekaimes, everything you can look up source to make it so simple. And Mafteches, I mean, everything is so just systemized in order to learn how to approach learning and life and anything else that could come up. There's a way to look at it as informed by the Rebbe's approach.
As we're getting ready for Yud Aleph Nissan, I know most of us will be writing a pan to the Rebbe. I want to mention something that's a big part of this process, but that sometimes is forgotten, and that is the demei pan, the money that we give with the pan. If you're wondering why we give money with a pan, we can actually find the explanation in Tanya Nigaris HaKedesh. The Alter Rebbe explains that our livelihood, our parnasa, is where our energy is invested. The chaye nafshe, as he refers to it. When we give demei pan, we're giving a piece of our physical essence. That's what creates the vessel and the keli to receive the brachas and this connection and hiskashos we're asking for in our pan. It's a long-standing tradition from the times of the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. By giving this tzedakah together with our pan, we're making the request real in the physical world. So when you send your pan this year, make sure to include demei pan. You can do this through magbis.org and through clicking on the tab for demei pan, which ensures that these funds will go to the same place that the Rebbe will deposit the money that he received in the panim, which is the Rebbe's institutions. It's a small step that makes a huge difference in how we prepare for Yud Aleph Nissan.
Is it considered on the podcast, is it considered good content when the guest complains about something? Because people like
Is it controversial?
I don't know if it's controversial or not.
Let's try it.
Okay, let's
We'll find
try
out
it.
afterwards.
Okay. I think a lot of times that I'm including myself here, sometimes because of, I'll say a limutzchos, because of our reverence for the Rebbe and every holy word that the Rebbe said, sometimes we become intellectually lazy. In other words, we're satisfied just to quote, here's what the Rebbe said. But the Rebbe wasn't asking to be quoted. The Rebbe was teaching you how to think.
How to apply it.
How to apply it, and also how to be mechadish. Mechadish is not a dirty word. We think of it, we laugh. Oh, chidush, you have a chidush. What are you, misnagid? You have a chidush. The Rebbe wanted Chassidim should be creative. I'm sure you know this story, but I heard it directly from Rabbi Shapiro from Miami. He said when he was a bacher, he went to a Yutes Kislev Farbrengen in Boston, and Rabbi Soloveitchik was there at that time. And he said that the Rav spoke for, I think he said he spoke for 2 hours. Like his drosha was like 2 hours. And then afterwards they sat down to Farbrengen. And they wrote up a duch, the Bachram. So he was Rebbe Shapiro was a Bacher at the time. So he wrote up a duch, and Soloveitchik was very into, I was saying brisk, into Rambam, especially Hilchas Tshuva. And so the Rebbe was saying sichas at those times about Geras HaTshuva. And so he wrote in the duch that the Bachram spoke with, talking about J.B. Soloveitchik, about the Rebbe's sichas about tshuva and Geras HaTshuva. So the Rebbe wrote back on the. You've heard this before?
No.
Okay, so he wrote back on the duch. You can ask him, Rabbi Shapiro, for the exact lashon. It was something like "Vade loy meduber rak be'inyan vade loy shokol v'torah be'inyanim shemeduber rak behizvad." Certainly, they didn't just do a shokol v'torah back and forth. Inyanim shemeduber rak behizvad. It's only content that was already given over in the Farbrengens. Ela b'inyanim shelahem, but their own concepts. Okay, pause. A bacher, first of all, just to think that a bacher, even a talented bacher, a future Rosh Hashiva, should speak in front of, JB Soloveitchik. Like you'd have the confidence to speak, to hold your own, to speak in learning. That's already a darga. But the Rebbe is saying, I hope you didn't just chazer my sichas. I hope you said your own ideas.
I think recently I spoke a few minutes, and someone came over to me and said, "It's a very good. It was amazing. You sound exactly what like Chabad. Like it was perfect." I told him, "Yeah, that's because I didn't make it up."
Okay.
I was repeating something that I listened to in a
Okay.
Farbrengen.
Okay, that's safe.
You're saying that's not.
No, it's good. It's good. That's the beginning.
There's this concept. I think I mentioned it in one of the podcasts that Chassidim, I think it was a thing from previous generations. They would say "Mizalkenin dem Rebbe akurat." There's like idea, there's like a longing or like a strive that a chassid is supposed to have to know the Rebbe, accurately.
Yeah.
I think what it means is, first of all, have the knowledge, but like you're saying, to know how to apply it to every scenario and how to maneuver that, how that applies to the particular situation with you're dealing with, which cannot always be quoted. The Rebbe said kach v'kach, and it needs to be applied to the situation.
If you met a younger man, Lubavitcher younger man, who told you, listening to the news, I'm hearing what's going on in Israel, and let's take like a real slam dunk, easy one. But I don't know what the Rebbe would say about Land for Peace. You'd be shocked, right? Like, why would you be shocked?
Because the Rebbe addressed it thousands of times.
Right. So it'd be weird to you that he wouldn't know. And he would say to you, I know, I think the Rebbe said it a bunch of times, but I'm not sure how it would apply in this situation. Maybe it's different. You'd be like, how can you not be sure how to apply that when the Rebbe gave you hundreds of examples of it? Milsa b'taima. It's not like the Rebbe said gzer gzarti. The Rebbe gave the logic behind it, right? So it's very transparent, especially in the Farbrengen. So I'm saying maybe stuff like that, like political stuff, you wouldn't know so clearly if you only learn Likutei Sichos. But certainly if you learn Farbrengens from that time, and if someone would say to you, I don't know what the Rebbe would say about it. I don't know. We can't ask the Rebbe, so how could we know? It would be weird. Right?
Correct.
Okay. So what I'm telling you is, to me, it's equally as weird if somebody would say, not that they don't know, okay? It's not a crime to not know. But like, I don't know, we can't know. How would we know? How would we know what the Rebbe would say about this? How would you know? Because the Rebbe didn't have to spend his entire life teaching his worldview. He didn't have to do that. The Rebbe clearly spent not just time, but like energy to make it very transparent how we look at things, whether it's Land for Peace or whether it's chinuch or shalom bayis or the role of women or how to learn Rashi. Like, don't tell me I don't know. Tell me maybe I have to think about it more. I have to digest it more. But it's all laid out there. There's a comprehensive worldview contained within the Rebbe's Torah. There's nothing in life that we couldn't figure out based on the information that we already have. That's at least that's how I feel.
I mean, to me, it's always been a clear thing that the Nasi Hader already addressed everything.
Right. That's another way of saying
for
it.
the
Yes.
day.
Right. If it's going to come up for anyone in this generation, then it has to be that the Nasi of that generation covered it.
Right.
Oh, where did he cover it? Quote it from me. Okay. It's like Teresh B'Chsav and Teresh B'Al Peh. It's like Moshe Rabbeinu says, why was the Torah given to me? It should be given to Rabbi Akiva. And then Rabbi Akiva says, Halacha l'Moshe Misinai. It's all there.
So 25 years ago, when the world was closer in time to when the Rebbe said it, it might have been, you might have to, in certain scenarios, have to think less to apply it because it was extremely doimet to whatever was the Rebbe spoke about. So now
The world was more similar.
right.
Yes.
So now we might have to like have more das and understanding in order to apply it. But
right. Yes.
it's all there.
Right. The difference between the world.
By the way, in certain things, it's the opposite. certain things when the Rebbe said it, people no one understood, and now it's so clear to everyone. I mean, Eretz Yisrael is a good example.
Yeah, Eretz Yisrael is a great example.
Look at the polling. How many people think that you should give away land? It's an extreme minority.
There's definitely stuff like that where it's like, did the Rebbe say this in 2026? Because it sounds like, and you're like, the Rebbe said this in the 50s? How did people even know what that meant in the 50s? This makes more sense now. Right. A good example is there's a sikha, I think it's Achron Shel Pesach, and the Rebbe is speaking about levels of cherus. So, because we have 2 days, so Shvi Shel Pesach, Achron Shel Pesach. So the Rebbe says it's not redundant, the 2 different levels. One is freedom on the level of freedom from Mitzrayim. The other is freedom from this Golus, Mashiach. So 2 different levels of cherus. So the Rebbe is describing, like, what does it mean to be free? Well, we know who's a ben chayrin. Person who learns Torah is called ben chayrin. Okay. So one level, it sounds like 2026. One level of ben chayrin is somebody, he's learning, and the phone rings.
Yeah.
And he won't answer it because he's learning right now. That's one level. That's only the first level. The second level, higher level, Mashiach level, is he's learning and the phone rings and the sound of the ringing is irrelevant. He doesn't process it. He says it's as meaningful to him as the sound of a fork falling on the floor. It's just noise. Like one level, I hear it. I know it's a phone ringing. I'm maybe even thinking who's calling me, but no, I won't do it. That's one level of freedom. You're not a knecht to the phone. You don't have to answer it. But then there's, I'm learning. What's a phone? It's not part of my reality right now. We talk about that today when we're all so hyper connected and we're
the Rebbe was speaking about when there was a payphone in the hall.
Right, there's a payphone down the hall. Right.
Someone mentioned, I think Benji mentioned that when the Rebbe said it, they took out the payphone from 770.
Oh no, what did you say?
I think Benji Pearson mentioned it in the podcast. That
what? I
think it was him. And when the Rebbe said that sikha, that's when they removed the payphone.
Oh, really?
From the hallway.
But
you're saying that whatever the Rebbe was saying then, now it's like on steroids.
Right.
I was actually yesterday I was learning a Farbrengen, Tavshim and Beis, and the Rebbe says very very like interesting. The Rebbe speaking about a father being mechanech his child, and you're telling them one thing, but then they see that you come home Shabbos afternoon, and you undo your setuk and you're having tea, and you're busy with the flies in the flies and of the world. You for sure don't take the Maimon Chassidus from the shelf. And Rebbe earlier was speaking about a grandfather that's telling his grandchild how to behave, but then he sees how does he behave. He's sitting on the telephone talking, not Dvarim Asurim, but sitting and talking on the telephone.
Wow. And
when I was reading this, I'm like, oh my gosh, Rebbe's talking about
today
us, the father that's supposed to be learning Chassidus,
right,
and telling his kids to learn Chassidus. Meanwhile, what's the father doing?
He's on the phone. Wow. Yeah. It's, what it reminds me of? It's like, the famous Sikha Parshas Noach about in the Zohar about the Industrial Revolution. So the Rebbe says there are certain things that until the technology existed, it was very abstract for people. Like Ayin Roya isn't Shemas, right? Yeah. So that was just an example, right?
The famous Maisa with Tvei Chassidim, there's names that.
What's the story?
They were learning. It says in Chassidus that there's more. There's more
water,
than land. He says, I was in Samarkand and I was in here.
Right, in every place, all I see is land.
So it must be Emunah. You believe in it.
Some things you have to take on Emunah.
Yeah.
The Alter Rebbe says that 2/3 of the world. And look what they tell you. The Alter Rebbe says, that 2/3 of the world is water. And he says, well, I don't understand. I've lived in different countries. Everywhere I go, it's all land. You never see water. Some things you have to take on Emunah. Yeah. So certain things were very abstract. And then as the technology existed, it was like, oh, this is a real thing. And I think Al Derech in a similar vein, certain things that Rebbe was speaking to Chassidim in the 50s and the 60s, And of course, the Rebbe is saying it's holy, you take it seriously. But I don't think they could imagine that the Rebbe is speaking about our time. And you call it nevuah. Like, to me, it's not negeya. Like the Rashbat said, like, if a Rebbe needs to have Ruach HaKodesh, he has Ruach HaKodesh. If he doesn't need, like, it's not to me like a checklist. But is it nevuah? To me, chacham adif minavi. A general concept, right? A chacham is greater than a navi. Why? I mean, it's a concept in Chassidus. Because a navi doesn't really understand what he's seeing. I mean, that's his mila too. He's a conduit. He's just telling you, he's reporting. He's a faithful reporter. But he doesn't understand it. He doesn't need to understand it. Chacham understands it. So that's why the Chacham is greater than the Navi. So in the Rebbe's Torah, it's like you start seeing how the reality that the Rebbe is speaking to, it doesn't become less relevant. It doesn't become, oh, it's dated, that was for then. It's more prescient. It's more ahead of its time, even if it were Nevuah. I mean, the Rebbe said the Frierdiker Rebbe is a Navi. Shoifed him, right? The famous sikh about the Navi Shebedreinu. So, but that, to me, that's not. I don't get impressed with Nevuah because I don't know. I don't really relate to it. But I don't know if I ever had Nevuah. But I know that I've understood a concept before, maybe on a very low level. I mean, I'm not such a genius, but I've learned a concept. I've understood a concept. So then, that impresses me. That excites me. That you can have someone teaching a chachma that doesn't become less applicable as the time goes on, but it becomes more obviously applicable as the time goes on. That's wild. And it's exciting. It's inspiring. Like, if you want a clear understanding of life, just learn the Rebbe's Torah. Just go learn what the Rebbe is saying about life, and you will have a better understanding of your life. That like type of thing that people should be thinking about on Yud Nissan. Does that count as Hisayrus? Is that you have a mind or too abstract?
If the question is how did it to be Nisayra to do that?
Oh, we said Goyla Chukka. How do you get to Chukka? Yeah. We should explain that question. The famous letter that Rebbe wrote after Shvat.
Anybody that learns the Rebbe's Torah is uplifted.
Yes.
100%. And it's
right, always happens.
It's any element of the Rebbe's Torah. It's a letter, it's learning Farbrengen, learning a Maimer, learning a Sikha. If you're reading the Her,
right. Time Uruk, Kitev Hashem, you're always going to be...
You get uplifted, exactly.
No question.
The question is, on a random Tuesday,
right?
How do you gravitate towards the Rebbe? If you're involved in Havli Ha'ilam and you're busy and you're raising a family and...
So I have an answer. It may be grub, but it's an answer. And, some of us are grub, so maybe a grub answer.
Never met anyone.
You never met such guys? Because you do. Not on this podcast, because you have all the
daily limitations.
Yeah. There's Kuntres in Yonish Teres Chassidus, right? So the Rebbe there speaks about that the Gemara says that Hashem says, Barasi Yitzhahara, I created a Yitzhahara. But the good news is, Barasi also created Torah Tavlin. I created Torah as Tavlin means spices, but like it means medicine. That's why like medicine is also on Shabbos because you grind spices, right? Okay. So the Rebbe says like this. David HaMelech was punished for calling Torah Zmiris. It's a Gemara in Saita. It's also in the Geras HaKodesh from the Alter Rebbe, but the original thing is Gemara and Saita. Not a Talmud Chacham, but Saita, Svira. You have to, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember which daf, but whatever. It's somewhere there. One of the 49 pages. At any rate, so David HaMelech was punished that he called Torah Zmiris. Zmiris means, I mean songs, but it means like it's a pleasant, uplifting distraction. You know, like somebody is like sad and they put on some music and it makes them feel better. So it's, David HaMelech said with all of his, you know, he had problems. I know we're Lubavitchers who don't learn Nach because that's for the Maskilim learn
It's not
Nach.
only relegated to Lubavitch. So,
The whole frum world, yeah,
Yeah.
because to show the Maskilim, by Maskilim I don't mean like masculine Ovid, I mean like the Haskalah movement, right? We have to show them that we don't, you know, they didn't win, so we don't learn Nach. But there was this person named David HaMelech.
the Rebbe writes in Yom Yom that Chassidim would do it when
Yeah,
they wrap the
how do they
tefillin.
do that?
So I saw someone at 770 with a broken arm.
Okay,
He's struggling to wrap his tefillin.
okay.
I asked him, "Do you want me to help you, or are you finishing nach? 'Cause it's so hard for you to do it."
So, David HaMelech had a lot of problems in life, and he took refuge in Torah. He found it soothing. That when he had, you know, Josh Gordon, Oliver Shalom, when he was doing the Rambam Shirim for Chabad.org, I was in touch with him regularly. And by the way, Kova Josh, I just want to say I made a bracha earlier.
Yeah. Every time I drink in the podcast and I don't say that because
Yeah.
I drank earlier,
Right.
I think that, I should look into why he always does that.
I know why he does it. Because somebody told him that he should say it so no one should be choshed that he didn't make a bracha
Stay,
earlier.
I'm saying,
And I know who told him to say it.
oh, okay.
Okay. At any rate, I made a bracha earlier.
Fine. It's not mashka.
So Josh told me, and he was very private about his health issues. So I don't know to what extent he knew about his health issues at that time. But he certainly had a lot of responsibilities. Fundraising, ran a huge operation. I mean, he had a lot of responsibilities. And so he was teaching Perek Echad. He was teaching, one chapter a day of Rambam. And he would teach it right after Shachris. So when would he prepare it? He would get up at like 4:30 or 5. And he would learn the chapter of Rambam. And then he would go to Shachris, and then after Shachris, he would teach it. So he told me that this is my Rambam therapy. That's what he called it, Rambam therapy. That when life is stressful and I have all this stuff going on, I'll learn my Rambam at 5 a.m, all by myself, and I just go into the Rambam. That's my Rambam therapy. Yeah. So David HaMelech says that Torah is soothing, it's his escape, it's his refuge, and he was punished for it. He forgot that the Aron is supposed to be carried on shoulders. He put it on a cart, the whole thing. Okay. Now, Alter Rebbe explains why Dafka that was doesn't matter. I mean, not negate to this. It does matter, but not negate to this. What's negated to this is the Rebbe's question. That if David HaMelech was punished for even saying that Torah was soothing, that it was an escape from his worldly troubles, how does the Gemara come and say, you know what Torah is? It's a remedy to worldly problems, and not just regular stam klipas noiga, yetzer hara, like the worst of the worst. That's what you're reducing Torah. You're taking Torah and you're reducing it to a solution for your sick problems, for your struggles with your sick yetzer hara, and that's what you're turning Torah into. People have this complaint a lot about the way sometimes people learn Chassidus today. They say, why can't you just learn about Seder Shtauslas and that itself, the haflaw of it, you just get away from your sick life for a while and just be moved by the grandeur of it. Why does everything have to be applied to your personal struggles and your doubts and your problems? Okay, so at any rate, the Rebbe says, what kind of a compliment is this to Torah to call it Torah Tavlin, that this is the remedy for the yetzer hara? And the conclusion is that, the theme of Kuntres Sinyona is etzem. What's etzem? Etzem means something that's indivisible, something that just is what it is, from the highest level to the lowest level, and it's unchanging. That's what it is, essence. So the Rebbe says like this: where do you see the essence of Torah? The dafka on the lowest levels. That if something can be translated even to not just this world, but the lowest parts of living in this world, meaning having a yetzer hara, that shows how Torah is atzmos, that it's relevant on the highest levels and it's relevant on the lowest levels. Okay. So, backtracking. We're discussing, right before we got into this.
Discussing how to get into.
Okay. So I told you I have a way of doing that's grub. But some of us, that's our language. By the way, you mentioned earlier about English letters of the Rebbe. My Nefesh Bama speaks English. So if I want to learn Nefesh Elokis, Nefesh Sichlis, that's Igros. But if I want to speak my Nefesh Bamas, definitely English letters. Because that's when my Nefesh Bamas comes and bothers me, it speaks to me in English. No question. So that's like how you fight fire with fire. But here's the deal. We all have problems. Everyone has problems. How do I know everyone has problems? Well, first of all, because in my personal life as Shais Taub, everyone decides to write me with their problems because I write this Ami column, which I've said hundreds of times is a poor imitation of Igros Kodesh. There's a famous clip that our friend Ben Shimon sent around where I said at his Chaf Av event, a one-liner, my Ami column is a poor imitation of Igros Kodesh. And he took that clip and he sent it around. Anyway, but I stand by it. It's true because Rabbi Frankfurter asked me, write an advice column. Like, I don't even know what an advice column is. He's like, you'll figure it out. So I was like, okay, I'll imitate Igros. But at any rate, so I know that everyone has problems.
Imitate it. In which sense?
Imitate the style. The style, the approach. There's a lot of klolim that I picked up from Igros, how to validate people, especially when you disagree with them. You can't agree with somebody's premise because they're wrong. Their whole problem is based on a misunderstanding. But you have to validate them. You can't just be mavatal. You can't just negate them.
You validate them first.
First, you validate them, and how to encourage somebody, but also demand and not let them off the hook. How to empower them. Like let's say they're complaining about something that's not their bechira chofshis. It's Yenna. They're complaining about some other guy. So how to put the onus back on them where they have power. Like these are things that I picked up from Igros. Anyway, we can come back to this if you want. But so here's the deal. I know that everyone has problems. There's a saying, there are two kinds of people in the world. There's normal people and people that you really know. Because if you'll know anyone, you'll find out that everyone's crazy. So when people, when it comes to shidduchim, that family's no good. They're crazy. Oh, that one from Australia, they're good.
Yeah, because no one knows them.
Because they're from Australia, you think they're normal. They're just as crazy as everyone. Yeah. Okay. At any rate, so I know everyone has problems, but also you don't have to be me. You don't have to borrow my email inbox. Just look at the Igros. All these people have problems. Okay.
By the way, there's many Igros that are not published.
Oh, very good point. And that's what was fit for publication. How much of it was not, or redacted. A lot of sections of,
and that was all the Rebbe said that because it's too personal.
Right? Yeah. Right. That's the tip of the iceberg. That was what was published. Right. Or people have asked me like, where did the Rebbe speak about whatever? Let's say a very personal, very intimate issue. Did the Rebbe ever speak about it? I said, I think he spoke about it thousands of times. Where? And I say, look in the Igros. It talks about Hesach Hadas. What is he talking about over there? What do you think he's speaking about? I mean, just use a little. What was most devastating to me, the person who asked me this was a Mashpia of Bachram, which to me, the number one qualification you have to be a Mashpia of Bachram is to know that 99% of the time that I was saying Hesach Hadas is about these things. But whatever.
It was disappointing to you, yeah.
Okay, it was disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Okay, but...
Add that to the list, okay.
Okay, well, add that to the list. Okay, but let's talk about this. The grub way to get the chukka going. Okay, so we all have problems. We're in Golos, okay? We have problems. So would it be better, perhaps, and maybe I could even argue the opposite actually, but would it be better to pick up a mimer just because I just want to connect to the Rebbe? Yeah, I guess that's beautiful. It's very clean. It's very pure. But at the very least, let's just say you have problems in life and you have doubts and you don't know how to deal with it. So at the very least, the pnia, the graba pnia, the ulterior motive, the selfish reason, just open up the Rebbe's Torah, open up Igros, and just start reading, just to have some clue how to deal with your crazy life. You're asking how to start learning. If you start learning, everyone always enjoys it, right? They always enjoy it. But how to get started if you need the initial motivation. So I'm saying, when you're trying to deal with your life in Golos and you're dealing with all your problems and you're dealing with it, this will give you clarity. It'll give you soothing. It'll give you peace of mind.
So it's about identifying when you're running on empty, which very often people are.
Sure.
It's just about identifying that the Nasihat Dair and the Rebbe is the address, and therefore go access, like go do it.
You know,
that your motivation should be your empty tank.
But right, I mean, the motivation is there, but you know what the problem is? There's a letter that I learned recently, but it's a motif that you find all the time. One of the things I told you that I learned certain klolim from the Rebbe's letters. One of them is the problem is the solution. Always the problem is, like, it's true in learning. Like, the bigger the kasha, the more of a chiddush you're going to arrive at, right? So also in life, the bigger the problem, or in chassidus, the bigger the helam, the bigger the giloy.
That's the Rebbe's approach when he asks questions in learning.
In learning, right?
The answer.
The bigger the question, the bigger the answer.
Right.
Or in terms of chassidus,
the answer is in the question.
The bigger the helam, the bigger the giloy that ensues. But in life also, and you see in the Igros, the bigger the conundrum the person is facing, the more clarity they're about to come into.
To receive.
Right. And it's not just the lefi erech, it's also the oifen, the manner of it, because the answer is embedded in the question. The famous simple example of it is Jonathan Sacks writes that, should I become the next chief rabbi of England?
I should.
Right, I should. Made the transposition editing marks. Turns should I into I should, right? You're asking it as a question. I'm telling you, you're saying it as an answer. Or Amol daf mereden zu sich, right? The Weindab story, right? Famous. Okay, we have many such illustrations of this.
Now, a side note.
Yeah.
You go back, just hold your thought, but
yeah.
One of the most geschmacka parts of that story with Rabbi Sacks, I saw, I think it's a gem or video where he's describing how he wrote to the Rebbe about whether he should become the chief rabbi, and he got that answer. And he told his wife, "Okay, I'm going to write to the Rebbe, but are you ready? Because whatever the Rebbe's going to say, I'm going to do."
Right.
So it was like a very chassidish.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't know if I should write. You want me to write? Okay,
right.
Just
it's a commitment.
Whatever that is.
Yeah. So the answers in the question, a guy writes to the Rebbe. He says, I can't do his baininess because I don't have time and I don't have concentration. I'm thinking all day long about other things and I can't do it. I can't think about Hashem. So the Rebbe writes him back, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, oh, good news. So you do have time and concentration.
You're just using it for the wrong thing.
Using it for the wrong thing. Like, I was afraid that maybe you're going to tell me, Pasha, you can't think. You don't have, some people that can't think. No, clearly you can think. You can concentrate. Good news. You're just thinking about the wrong things. Okay. So that's an example of the problem is the solution, right? Question is in the answer, or the answer is in the question. But what I was saying before about, so we have problems in life and we're in pain. Different degrees of pain. It could be like massive pain, or it could just be general discomfort. Right. Okay. And we know that we need clarity. We need some way to frame this, some way to look at this so we can get through the day. And then what do? And I'll include myself. I'm not perfect here. Look for answers in other sources. And that to me is the tragedy, because it's just satisfying enough that it delays the need to search further. It feels like
those other sources.
What?
Those other sources.
Yeah. So, podcasts and books and whatever other sources. Some are Klippus Noiga and some are, lower. But the point is that
someone sent me I believe I mentioned this also somewhere on another podcast, but the Elam will have to forgive me if I'm repeating myself.
Okay.
But someone sent me a meme that is a new discovery that if you help others, it actually helps with your happiness.
Okay. Right.
And I was like, "Good morning." Like, welcome to, what does the Rebbe say to anybody that's writing about they didn't want a tikkun and they want this, go be involved in the youth and help. Like,
Right.
and it's like, okay, so that's what you're saying. You're delaying some of the, but you're gonna have to go further, and you're gonna get the real source anyways.
By the way, this is a story, mamish, a story that Rebbe told. Rebbe told a story that the Rebbe Rashab says that it was at a Suda, so it's Yom Tov, I think it was, and there was someone there at the Suda, I think from Beis Harav, and this person was listening to podcasts. So I guess in the 1890s didn't have podcasts. It must have been a book. I don't know. Bicher, yeah.
That was the clip.
So
that was the podcast of the day.
That was the podcast. So the guy says, "Hey,
I had him a spirit of Pinya Korf. He used to still talk about Bicher."
Bicher, yeah. So he says that the professors found out that when you look up, it helps you remember. And when you look down, it's a story in Likkutei Sichos. And when you look down, it helps you to concentrate because there's a vein in the brain and it brings blood to different parts of the brain that do different functions. And the guy, he said he was all excited about it, thought it was very interesting. And afterwards, the Rebbe Rashab went and got a mimer of the Mittler Rebbe. And he showed him. Didn't say that a stalshlis, the mayach hazikarin is lamaila from the mayach of oimik, and then that's why sariach selaka, and a person that the person is also made that way, and when he wants to remember, he looks up. When he wants to concentrate, he looks down. So the Rebbe tells this story as an illustration that everything's in the Torah. And this guy, Nebuch, he had to get excited that he heard it on a podcast or he read it in a book or whatever it is. It's in Chassidus. Okay. So going back to what I was saying about Graba Pnius.
So I have that. Do you want to get controversial?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Chassidische Der Herr. We live in a chaotic world. A world where for us Chassidim is a seinu, lei ra'inu. We do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Chassidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Chassidische Der Herr provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Der Herr books, Der Herr online content, and so much more. Men, women, and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular Der Herr, or enjoying the children's podcast. Whether it's Bachrim in yeshivas receiving the Der Herr, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying Der Herr club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to the Herr Monthly Magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Der Herr is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen. You can be part of Der Herr through your financial support as well, through visiting our website derher.org or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So recently, we published something from the Rebbe, and it was about depression. And the Rebbe gave a very clear answer that's from the Yitzhara and Haytachen. How does it come to a chassid? Who has time for this?
Okay.
And I got pushback. It's out of context, and there's other letters, and it's a serious thing. Okay. So, I'm open to criticism, no problem. But I just quoted the Rebbe. So I don't know what.
Right.
but and not whatever the header.
The magazine, yes.
It was actually like a WhatsApp that we sent out.
Uh-huh.
Um,
I remember that project.
no, this is recently.
Oh, it was
That was a
recent.
different project.
You did another project.
It wasn't a project. It happened
Okay.
to be. We have selections that we sent out. So that was one
Uh-huh.
day. I was thinking to myself, okay, the Nish. I mean, maybe the Rebbe is right. Like, has anyone ever thought of it?
Right.
By the way, in my own lifetime, I've seen like there's been a shift. Like people have gone that way, and now people are like slowly. I don't know if I'm being clear. I mean, intentionally being a little vague over here.
I understand that you're being careful, and the nature of trends is that they trend, and that the understanding of things shifts and changes and evolves, and there's pendulum swings, and they go to one extreme and to another extreme. And what is considered conventional wisdom, I mean, I'm not even that old, but in my lifetime, I've seen not even pendulum swing, back and forth and back and forth.
I'm younger than you, and
you've seen it swing
in my adult life.
Right.
I've seen
swinging back and forth. Yeah. So maybe the Rebbe knows what he's talking about. Or at the very least, could you admit that the Rebbe knew what he was talking about to that guy?
Right.
And that there's some value in hearing what the Rebbe told this person. Doesn't mean that you have to do exactly what it says there. See, where does that come from? That comes from that very shallow approach I was describing before when I said people who only think about what the Rebbe said, not how the Rebbe said it.
Right, then the Rebbe wrote Kim that one answer, the answers to one person.
Right, the Rebbe will give two opposite answers to two different people. In fact, I know of cases where regarding a shidduch, two parties, the same shidduch, the Rebbe told one thing, the other thing. It's good for you, it's not good for you. Okay, so, and if you're learning Gemara, you don't have a problem with that.
Right, there's generalizations. Like, for example...
But where does it come from, the generalizations? Where does that Schwachkeit come from? It comes from this shallow way of learning where I think that I just have to memorize all the things that Rebbe said, and they're quotes. They're just quotes. They're things. And what was the Rebbe's opinion about what kind of car you should buy? The Rebbe said, buy last year's model. And that becomes like, put that on the banner. That's
like a nutzte, the Rebbe said.
Yeah, I think it even says like a year ago, like last year's model.
I didn't see that. So a few times I've said a used car.
Whatever. The point is, and they make that like that's a Sifin Shulchan Aruch. Like that becomes like
they're not let a lease because it's not a used car.
Right, exactly. Okay. There's an approach, like it's a way of looking at things. So yeah, is it important to know Oisius Harav, to be able to quote and to, yes, absolutely, and to know what did the Rebbe say, what words did the Rebbe use. Very important. It's very important. But that's the beginning. And I think what happens is people just get very hung up on, what was the Rebbe's opinion about such and such? Well, it says in such and such shikha, this is what the Rebbe said. Now that's the answer. No. What was the context for it? This might be like a silly way to like make the point. But that'll be like coming up to someone saying, what's the most important Yom Tov in the Jewish year? Oh, I know. It's Rosh Hashanah. I just learned a sikha that Rebbe said Rosh Hashanah is the most important day. Right?
You know anything about the Rebbe, you know that whatever the Rebbe is speaking about, he'll explain how this is more important than anything else, right?
Right. But if the person just takes that one clip and that's it, and that's the whole binyan out, right?
Katuv.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Now we have a source and that's it. And we're going to make it on a poster and that's it. And it absolves me from actually being a Talmud. I think that's also another thing that's connected to this whole discussion. Like the Rebbe's chiddush in the musag of Kabbalah soil. The Rebbe innovates the definition of the concept of Kabbalah soil itself. Many places, but I think one approach to Kabbalah soil is that there's Kabbalah soil and there's seichel. Right? There's accepting the yoke and there's thinking. And there's two different opposite worlds. They're antithetical. You have to choose one or the other. Nasa or Nishma. You got to do one or the other. And the Rebbe comes and says, no, it's Nasa and it's Nishma. You both. There's a Seder, obviously, Nasa first, then Nishma. But don't say Nasa and then, oh, no, that's it. Kabbalah soil, now I don't.
Saying the Yereshus Haveda Vikara V'Sharsha, whatever could be the Kabbalah soil.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, you have to have a geschmack in the Kabbalah soil for understanding it.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
That's another thing. And by the way, very interesting, a letter I saw that Rebbe wrote to a mechaneches, seems to be in Kfar Chabad. He told her she should tell the girls that even the Chachmei Atava of Umas Ha'olam, I forget the exact lashon, but it was like non-Jewish scientists are also saying that you need to have Kabbalah Soil in order to have a happy life. And I was thinking to myself, it's sort of like we were saying before, like, why do you, was that from podcasts, right? And then I realized you can't have Kabbalah Soil to Kabbalah Soil. You first have to get the person to agree that it's good for them, because they're not there yet. They have to agree it's good for them. Then once they agree it's good for them, now they can have Kabbalah Soil. So at the beginning of it was explain to them, even according to non-Jewish scientists, you have to have self-discipline in life. Okay, but getting back to this other point about Kabbalah Soil, the way that Rebbe explains it. Kabbalah Soil is not you check your brain at the door and now you're not thinking anymore and now you're done. To the contrary. If you say Kabbalah Soil means I no longer have an obligation to think, what you're basically doing is you're telling Hashem, my Kabbalah Soil only goes so deep. I can be Makabal Oil on the level of Maisa, maybe even on the level of Dibur, but I cannot give you my Machshava, and therefore what I'll do instead, I'll shut it off. I'll shut it off. But I can't think like a Jew. I just can't do it. So you're holding out on Hashem. So the Rebbe says, Kabbalah Soil. By the way, one of the Yisayis Sichas on this is in the Sicha in Chelik Gimel on Parsha Zocher. But Shaul, what does it mean? What was his mistake? And what does it mean he didn't listen? And that Kabbalah Soil doesn't mean you turn off your brain. It means that you accept that you're going to use your brain and you're going to train yourself to think like a Yid. That's what it means. So I think a lot of times one of the issues we have culturally is, as Lubavitchers, I'm saying, is like, okay, how will I have Kabbalah Soil? I will just do whatever the Rebbe said. Tell me what the Rebbe said. Tell me what the Rebbe said. Tell me what the Rebbe says, and I'll do it. Just tell me what the Rebbe said, and I'll do it. And the Rebbe wants Talmidim. The Rebbe wants people who know how to think. The Rebbe is spending thousands of hours teaching you how to approach not just learning, but life. And you're refusing to do it. You're saying, no, I just, give me the quotes. Give me the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and that's it, and I'll follow it. So that's why, like you're saying, you got pushback. Oh, the Rebbe told someone to get over their depression. Well, what does that mean? Everyone should just get over their depression? When did it ever occur to you, because the Rebbe said something one time to one person, that is the binyanav, that it becomes the rule for every situation, every time? There's an approach that brings across it. But if you think about that in those terms, if your way of relating to the Rebbe's Torah is very literal, where you're just, what did the Rebbe say? And now, then you do generalize, and then you're afraid of words like that, because you're like, oh, well, but that doesn't fit with what we know. But it fits with that real human being reached out to the Rebbe in a time of weakness, and the Rebbe, as a loving father, said it to that person. So it has relevance at least on that level, has truth at least on that level. But we can't turn it into a banner that we could say Shachas Mincha Ma'ariv. Well, who said anything is like that?
But there is an approach, like in this way that may not, which some people may struggle with and find not conventional. Okay.
But it's an approach, and you have to know how to apply it. And
obviously, what is the approach?
Well, generally, the Rebbe is very into minimizing people's problems, not invalidating it, not dismissing. Saying being dismissive is, that's not.
Grow up.
Grow up, right. There's an expression, don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big God is. Okay, now that's my version of Moshe Dan Nechoshish, that the Talmid of Baal Shem Tov had to hear the Ukrainian wagon driver say it in
Können kannst du fällt in die Wellen.
Right, but the question is, why did they have to hear it from the Ukrainian wagon driver? It was a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, the point is, sometimes you hear it said in the Oisius of Sfasa Medina, and it makes more sense to you. So there's a vort. Don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big God is. The Rebbe's approach is very much on the side of, like, this is manageable. I never saw the Rebbe say, this is unmanageable. Like, we're never going to be able to take care of this. This is too big. We can't deal with this. I never saw it. So that's very different than dismissive. Dismissive is, I don't even want to hear about it.
Or it doesn't exist.
Or it doesn't exist. It's not real. The Rebbe's like, yeah.
You can do it.
You can do it. Like, it's real, but we can manage this. This is manageable. Now, that's not to tell you that this is the binyan av, that anyone who has depression, that the answer is, you can do it. Maybe that's not the answer, or maybe that's not the entire answer. Maybe that's only part of the answer. We love to generalize. I can get really controversial if you want.
Okay, go ahead.
So the other day, we're learning a letter, 30 letters in 30 days. And I noticed that it was the date of the letter was Yud Aleph Shvat. Not Tavshin Yud Aleph, but it was all, we're learning Chelik Yud Beis, so all the letters are from Tavshin Tezai. But it was Yud Aleph Shvat. So I mentioned Yud Aleph Shvat is the first day of Kabbalas and Nesiyas. And now it happened to be the day we were learning that letter was Beis Nissan, which Beis Nissan is the Hilula of the Rebbe Rashab. It's also Kabbalas and Nesiyas. Of the Haschalas and Nesiyas of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Not like with the Rebbe where there's a whole period in between. Like the day of the Hilula was the day of Haschalas and Nesiyas. So I said, it's interesting because Yud Aleph Shvat's the letter we just learned. That's the beginning of the Rebbe's Nesiyas, and Beis Nissan is the beginning of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Nesiyas. Of course, on the Yom HaChtorah, which I said that term because that's the language that Rebbe used, is the beginning, the coronation of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and so you should say Yechia Melech to give life to the Nasi. So Yechia Melech, it gives life to the Nasi. Beis Nissan Tavshin Memches, yeah. So someone made a clip of it. They got all excited. Oh, the end of the Yigas Shir, Shais said Yechia Melech. So I was in Crown Heights for Shabbos. So a lot of people were coming over commenting on, oh, yeah, he said Yechia Melech. Yeah, I did. That is correct. Beis Nissan is the time to say Yechia Melech. I'm not telling you can't say it any other time. What I'm saying is the context of Yechia Melech is Beis Nissan. Now, maybe if you want to generalize, you could say, for us, it's Yud Aleph Shvat. And maybe Yud Aleph Shvat, I'll say Yechia Melech. It'll be an appropriate thing to say because that's the Kabbalas and Nesiyas, the Hachtorah, however you want to say it. But my point is, I think people get really, really hung up on, well, this is the word, these are the words, this is the quote, okay? And now, if it's good, let's just do it all the time. Like if the Rebbe said that Rosh Hashanah is the most important Yom Tov, that's it. Oh, but he said Sukkot is the most important Yom Tov. He said Shavuos is the most important. Everything is context. There's a context for saying Yechia Melech. There's a context for every holy word that Rebbe said has an eternal context. Eternal doesn't mean that you should say that all the time. It means there will always be situations in which it is the most appropriate thing to say. Is that too nuanced? Is that like too, I don't know, what you wrote, should we say it or not? You imagine somebody came to 770 for Slichas, and he heard Slichas, and he was so excited, and he's walking around in Chedesh Adar, and he's saying, it's so moving. That's for Slichas. Like, why are you saying that now? Like, everything has context. So going back to your
famous
thing. Yeah, and people used to mock that. I remember clearly people mocking wegen was meret, wo meret. People used to mock that he's not committing. He can't. It's not that he's not committing. It's that I give you a very, very simple example that if you don't grasp this, you cannot learn Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe says in Torah Or that Mahus HaNefesh has no tzir. He says, but in Sefer Shalbeinim I said that Mahus HaNefesh is Koiches HaNefesh, Eser Koiches, Seichel and Midas. He says, yeah, because in Sefer Shalbeinim we're talking about the Avodah that you can control. You must control your Levush HaNefesh, your thought, speech, and action. You can't directly control your Seichel and Midas, your intellect and your emotions. So relative to the context of Sefer Shalbeinim, we call Koiches HaNefesh, Mahus HaNefesh in that text. But here in Torah, Mahus HaNefesh means something beyond, deeper even than Koiches HaNefesh, and has no tzir. But imagine somebody would insist that they learned, or in the end of Perek Beis of Tanya, he talks about a levush, oisei a levush. Tzemach Tzedek says that that's the nefesh hasiklis. But in Perek Dalid, and then for the rest of Tanya, levush is machshava dibur ma'aseh, thought, speech, and action. Imagine if you were forcing, well, if levush means this, it has to mean, if that's what it means, 2 chapters later, it has to mean it in this chapter as well. But that's not the context. So the same word has different meaning in different contexts. So I think a lot of the problem is that we get hung up on, did the Rebbe say it? If the Rebbe said it, now this becomes the simplified catch-all phrase for every situation. And that, I'm just saying, when people said to you, you can't print the Rebbe telling somebody to, what was even the language? You don't have to be exactly precise.
I don't want to misquote, but it was also a translation. The Rebbe said, like, ver hat Zeit after das.
Okay.
Like a
right.
chassid.
You have no time for depression.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I believe that's
Okay.
what it was, if I remember correctly.
And then it becomes, well, that is dismissive of all depression, and because you're saying that that's how you should speak to anyone every time. Nobody said that. We're saying that the Rebbe said it to this. And by the way, let me go further. This is what the Rebbe said to this person this time. I don't know what the Rebbe told that person the very next day. It could have been different. Nuance. That's why it's so important to understand the approach. It's not what, it's how.
So let me ask you another question. Forget about what the Rebbe wrote to people, what the Rebbe spoke publicly. So it's Yudalef Nissan, and how are you mechazik your skashrus, learning the Rebbe's Torah, and doing what the Rebbe told us to do. Kiyum hara'esav, etc. So someone could struggle with some of the things that the Rebbe said to do that are hard. Someone reached out to me today. What does it mean to learn Shleisha Prakim and Rambam? It's very, very hard.
It is hard.
If you actually,
it's very hard.
Actually do it, and not just read Tillim.
The 2 hardest things in my life are Shabbos Mevorchim Tillim and Shleisha Prakim.
I don't have a problem with Tillim.
You don't have a problem with it?
I don't know. I don't have a problem with that, but the Shleisha
It's
Prakim.
terrible. It's terrible. It's torture for me. Torture.
Okay.
And I'm saying it publicly because I want to normalize it, that it may be torture for other people. And I want them to know.
So this is my question.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's hard, I'll give you, let's do a very hard example.
Okay.
The Rebbe had a campaign, and we published an extensive essay on it in the Deher a number of years ago. The Rebbe had a campaign to have large families.
Okay.
And the Rebbe was very, and I read it often. Baruch Hashem, I have a large family. And I reread it to Sichas and that article often. And one of the Chassan teachers tells me he gives it out to Chassanim,
right.
And a Kal teacher also. The Rebbe is very, very clear about it.
Yes.
And also, the Rebbe addresses spacing very clearly, and the Rebbe is very strong about the lack of it. So obviously, there's everything you already said before.
Right.
There's the nuance, and
right.
and fine. There's that nuance, but then there's another thing that sometimes the Rebbe wants us to do something that is very hard.
Yeah,
and that's part of what it means to be a soldier.
Right. Even though it's hard, you're going to do it.
So, what do you say about all of this?
That's a very valid question. This is a very sensitive area. I mean, that's a super sensitive area.
I know, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah. Okay. That, I think, the most controversial thing.
It happens to be that I am passionate about it, and I feel like that it's that particular area is something that gets written off very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that the Rebbe's whole point of the campaign was not to tell you that it's usur or anything like that.
Right.
The Rebbe was trying to educate us how
Yes.
we.
Yes.
And I think one of the lashonos that the Rebbe uses, the Rebbe's talking to women. The Rebbe says that you shouldn't go einreisen beim Rav. They gotta have that. You should. The Rebbe wants.
Right.
Obviously,
It's an attitude.
Obviously, you could go to the Rav to get a heter.
Right.
The Rebbe
And the
said-
Tzemach Tzedek, who's the
Rebbe's
Pesach for Chabad, writes about birth control.
Right, but the Rebbe.
And if you learn the Tzemach
Correct.
Tzedek, okay, so it exists.
So the Rebbe's
and
trying.
a Chassid Rav knows how to give heter.
Right, but the Rebbe is trying to influence.
But
in that
when
case,
the
women,
woman asks the Rav, her attitude.
right,
Exactly. But people don't get these nuances.
talk about this, no?
The
I'm
Rebbe-
interviewing you, you know.
The Rebbe is not telling you what to do. I mean, I guess maybe some places you could say that the Rebbe is telling you what to do. We can talk about
The
that.
Rebbe doesn't tell you what to do. The Rebbe teaches.
But that's the thing that Rebbe is teaching. With the family planning, clearly the Rebbe is not giving anyone an instructive, this is what you have to do. The Rebbe is giving you an approach to it. There's one very powerful sikh about family planning. The Rebbe talks about Bereshis bara likimesa shmai vesa aretz. Aretz means erdische Sachen, the worldly approach. And from the worldly approach, it's so overwhelming. And how can I do it? But then you have to say, was wird meine Neshama sagen? You remember this lashon. Beautiful. Like, what would my neshama say? And it's like a thought process, a meditation a person's supposed to go through. Like, yeah, from a physical point of view, there's no way I can make this work. But what would my neshama say? That's not a gzera gzarti. It's not that the Rebbe making a decree. Here's what you have to do. That's the Rebbe teaching.
So my question for you is, when there's an inyan from the Rebbe that's hard. I mean, a lot of things are hard. Shlichus is very hard. For some people, bringing a sheitel is hard. I mean, there's a lot of things that are hard. How does a chassid, what's the mixture of Kabbalah's oil, but also chinuch, to actually not just do something Kabbalah, but actually, like, for example, if you're struggling to have a large family, don't rely on the fact that 10 years ago you looked into it. Do it again. However much you need it, every day, every week, every year, whatever it is. Like, but what do you do to be a chassid, to act like, the things that are hard for you? How do you just say I can't do it, or just have that Kabbalah sale without buying into it? That's also a bad recipe. What's the balance?
Is the famous story about Herman Wouk came to the Rebbe, and Herman Wouk had a very interesting, unusual biography in that he grew up in America. I think he was from the Bronx. Shomer Shabbos his whole life, even when he was in the American Army, and he was. By the way, people think that everyone who ever was like on the radar of Lubavitch, like they exaggerate their level of fame.
How big they were. Right?
It's called the telethon syndrome. Like Lubavitcher Bacham, think like Jan Pierce was like the biggest star of all because he was, But Herman Wouk actually
was.
Yeah, I mean, if you list like top 5 influential American authors of the 20th century, I think everyone's going to put him on the list, right? He was very big. Anyways, the Pella was the guy was from his whole life. Okay, now he comes to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is telling him about his plan, and he says, with all due respect, Lubavitcher Rebbe, do you think you can tell American Jews to do anything? It's like, I am an American Jew. I know these people. And you have to understand, American Jewry, even the Orthodox were not Orthodox. I mean, very few people were able to hold it together.
You're talking about like the pre-war
generation
and
that generation,
their offspring.
the assimilation was super, super rampant. They came over from the old country, and the stories of throwing the tefillin over the boats. I mean, these are real things. Like, it was shreklach. I mean, I don't have to give you examples to prove it, but I can tell you
that's
the
the whole
level.
American Jury that you see.
Right, and when the Frierdiker told about America's Nishtanderish was not just for fun. It was a real issue. It was a crisis. So Herman Wouk is talking about someone who was from, and he is from America. And he gets that mentality. He says, Lubavitcher Rebbe, do you think you can tell American Jews to do anything? Like, Americans are not Russians. Russians are very, a folk, a soldier. But Americans, like, are cowboys. You don't tell Americans what to do. My freedoms, right? You tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. So he says, Lubavitcher Rebbe, you think you can tell American Jews to do anything? And Rebbe says, no, you can't tell them to do anything, but you can teach them to do everything. At least that's how Herman Wouk reported it. And I've heard Rabbi Feller repeat it before. I don't know if he told it directly to him. I know I think they went to Yudolf Nissan together on a
private plane.
Private
the whole
plane
story.
with Senator Bashowitz. Yeah, it's a whole story. Okay, you've heard that also, right?
Yeah.
You think you can tell Americans just to do anything? No, you can't tell them to do anything, but you can teach them to do everything. Okay. So here's what I think. There may be some things that Rebbe did say in a manner of Gezerti. I'm not sure what they are. I'd have to think about it. I would think most things, though, is the Rebbe teaching. And the Rebbe is spending time explaining things, why it's important, why we do it this way, not other ways. Like you mentioned, Shaitel. Like that was something that Rebbe explained, why this way, why not another way, why is it important? Any of these concepts, the Rebbe had enough authority, in the eyes of Chassidim at least, to say, this is the decree, this is what I'm saying, this is what you have to do. But the Rebbe educated and explained it.
There were other kreisen that you have to take attendance if you show up at the tish or whatever.
Right.
It was never like that in Lubavitch.
Right.
Maybe the Rebbe took attendance, but it wasn't. You weren't. It wasn't. You didn't feel that the mandate.
Right, and it's interesting that people were there because they felt that they should be there. Nobody had to be there. They wanted to be there. And I think that's the same with a lot of things. Like, no one's forcing you to do this. But the Rebbe gave you enough information and explanation that if you think about it for a little while, you'll want to do it. Just like Lahavdil, you listen to your favorite podcast and you read your favorite author, and by the time you're done, you're all excited and you're motivated. You're going to do this, you can do that. Okay, can the Lubavitcher Rebbe have as much place in your mind, Lahavdil, as those things? Do you think the Rebbe has the capacity to influence you? I would even just say it. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm just saying it even as an innocent question. Try it out. Try to see what happens. See how influential it'll be. Go make it super easy. You don't even have to read. Go and pull up Living Torah videos on family planning and just watch those videos.
And they made a whole film on that.
They made a whole
Just
thing
on
on
that,
it. Yeah. Just watch those and just see if it has an effect on you.
I know a certain Rav.
Yeah.
That when he gets the question, maybe if it's the first time, he says, "Just do me a favor, watch the video."
And then
It's a chiddush shut up. Just watch the. I mean, maybe now he says read the article. I don't know, but watch the video, and then call me back.
You did a whole thing in the hair about family planning. Was that what you got bashed for?
Yeah,
Or
we
was it
got
mikvah?
that.
Which did you get?
We got bashed
for?
because people thought
inappropriate.
it's not appropriate for Bachrim.
Yeah, it's not appropriate for Bochum. You know the story Rabbi Dr. Pape told me about the Mashiach Times. You know about that?
Tell me what.
I'm sure you know it. Come on, Yossi, you know everything. The cover of the Mivtzoyim, and they didn't want to write Taras HaMishpacha,
Yeah.
right? So they wrote something. The Rebbe had said a sikh about telling the truth. So instead, ironically enough, telling the truth, because they were like hiding the truth, and because they didn't want to write Taras HaMishpacha. And the Rebbe wrote, the Rebbe was Magia, all the covers of the Mashiach Times. So he's like, one of the Mivtzoyim is missing over here.
Right.
Taras HaMishpacha. Not appropriate for Bachim. The Rebbe wanted children should know it's a thing.
I mean, first of all, whatever. I don't really want to.
No, go ahead.
Want to get into this?
Go, yeah,
I mean,
do.
first of all, the Rebbe was speaking to a room packed with Bachrim.
Right. Who was there? Right.
Even though I saw in a sikh once that the Rebbe says that the Iker crowd is Balbatim. Like, I'm addressing, and not about this, about something else.
Right.
Fine, but the pile, I mean, second of all, when are they supposed to find out about how to think about life?
Right.
When it hits them in the face?
Right.
That's the first time they should. And I'm not even getting into the outside influence on our culture today and how, Baruch Hashem,
Right.
People, the Bachrim have,
Right.
many of them know.
It's called the Dordea.
Exactly. I mean, there's the famous joke. Someone has the parent sits down with the child and he says, "We're gonna have the talk. Talk about what? The talk." And the kid says, "Okay, no problem. What do you want to know?"
Uh-huh.
Maybe that we have to cut out.
No, it's fine. Leave it. It's good. So why were people upset about it?
I mean, that was a reaction that people had. I mean, there was a machlekes amongst various mashpim if there's any validity to that thing. I mean, the people that I spoke to felt very strongly that, first of all, the Rebbe saw to it to explain this berabim, and he even said in those sichos that I'm speaking about, even though it's quote unquote not tznius. The Rebbe said it in the sichos.
Right.
He said that. He addressed that issue.
Right.
It's number one. And the Rebbe said, nevertheless, I'm going to address it. And b'chalal, whenever the Rebbe speaks about any of these things, the Rebbe speaks about in such a elevated, edel. I listened to some shiurim from people from other kreisen. They say whatever they want as long as it's in Hebrew. You know, as long as they're using a halachic term for anything hepech hatznius that they're talking about, they just use it. You know, and whenever the Rebbe spoke about anything like that, the Rebbe always made sure to speak very, very elevated kedusha manner of speech. That's number one. I don't know which number we're holding, but the main point is that the Rebbe was educating an elam, and who when you get educated, when you're single, when you're a bacher, when you're before you're married or a girl, saying that is when you get anything in life. I mean, I would say that most people, most of their education, their hanachas come from when they're bachrim. So anything that you need to hear then. Okay, the details. Yeah, there's an answer from the Rebbe. A bacher wrote was on I think Merkeshlichus, and he met somebody that had a bunch of shilas in Amunah, like not shilas in Amunah, like halacha says this, but the reality is that, you know, like it's a Torah and science type of thing. So the Rebbe gave it's a minor. The Rebbe gave like a detailed answer. Two of them were like in yanim that were in yanim tznius, like about like the biology,
right?
And something in halacha it says, and the biology is different. And the Rebbe said like it's not appropriate, like you're a bacher.
Okay,
fine.
So that was a limit. Yeah.
Fine, that was
you see, when the Rebbe had to make a limit, he made a limit, or at least for that person.
There are limits, but you're gonna fine. So that's why we only learn. Taras Mishpacha and halachas when you're chassid. Okay,
by the way, how old does a bach have to be to learn Rambam?
Yeah, that's for sure, right? You know,
because you go to Rambam, you're gonna get an education.
Correct.
Halavai, everyone's context for their original exposure to everything in life should be from Torah. And I think that's the theme of what we're talking about here, that the Rebbe should be as much of a mandama in our lives as all the other sources, lahavdil, that we allow to have an influence on us, at least as much. And that there's no area of life where you can say, well, you know, the Rebbe can tell me how to daven. The Rebbe can tell me, I don't know, shlichus, you know, in that tchum, you know, if it has to do with avodah. But there's certain parts of life, you know, I have to figure it out for myself. And it's like so opposite of the way that Rebbe educates how to understand what a Rebbe is. What is a Rebbe? Is someone who is with you in all areas of your life. Famous sikha from the first sikhas, from the first Farbrengens after Yud Shvat, the Rebbe is talking about the Gemara about Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Yehuda Anasi, Labani Ani Tzarech, I need my sons. And he speaks about, the Rabbi says that I keep my bed made and my lamp lit and my... and what was the third thing? And my table. So... and the Rebbe talks about this Bani Chaim Azayna, that the table is parnasa, and that the mita is children, you know, and the lamp is Ner Hashem Nishmas Odom is life, and people come to the Rebbe, and just like you came to the Rebbe before Yud Shvat, you come to the Rebbe after the Istalkus, and you talk about, ask the Rebbe. Don't think the Rebbe is way up there, and now he can't relate to your needs anymore of Bani Chaim Zaini, your family issues, and your Parnasa issues, and your health issues. The Rebbe still cares, and then the Rebbe goes even deeper, and says, by the way, Mita, on the Parv level, Mita means family issues. But there's even lower. Mita can mean Avedas, because first of all, Mita is when the head and the feet are on the same level. So you're not thinking, but
Saita.
Right, Saita, very good, okay. And
That's like I'm base now.
yeah, that's it. I'm always holding still at that point. I'm still, but also that it was Mita is Avedas. He says, yeah, of course. Because people are nichshel in those things. People struggle with that. Yeah. So Mita means chatas nurim. And you can come, listen to this. The Rebbe, after the Istalkus, is high. Istalkus meaning elevation.
Istalki kada de kushabrichu.
Istalki kada de kushabrichu. Yeah. Bechulu alm. The Rebbe is on these high levels. And you think to yourself, what kind of a connection do I have? I have issues, real issues, and the shame, and there's the. I don't even want to tell my mashpia. I should tell the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is saying, "What do you think a Rebbe is? What do you think a Rebbe is? Who are you going to tell? Like the guy who came back from Jamaica. Who else should I tell?" And I think everybody should know that. It's like whatever you're struggling with in your life, whatever it is. Whatever it's, I'm not saying if you don't have these problems, go out and get those problems, God forbid. But whatever it is that you are dealing with, the Rebbe has answers for you and guidance. And the Rebbe knows how to be gentle, and the Rebbe knows how to also be firm. The Rebbe knows how to comfort you. The Rebbe knows how to push you. And it's all there. And there's nothing in your life that you have to keep private and separate from your relationship with the Rebbe, because it's all there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the Dalf Nissan work.
That whatever's going on in your life, you should know that Rebbe has guidance for you. That Rebbe cares. It's relevant. You are relevant to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is relevant to you.
Okay. So I think we should. I think Dalf Nissan is a day that each day has different Yud Shvat, and Dalf Nissan has different.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What is the difference? I mean, what is the uniqueness of Dalf Nissan over, let's say, Yud Shvat?
Right. Yud Shvat is the beginning of the Rebbe's public life officially. Capacity of the official capacity of Nasi, or Gimel Tammuz is the culmination of another level of the Avodah, the life's work of the Rebbe becoming more impactful in the world. Or like Yud Kislev, the connection, this is the day that connected. So what are you saying? What's Yud Aleph Nissan?
What's the uniqueness of Yud Aleph Nissan?
Yud Aleph Nissan is gratitude. So we give a present to the Rebbe. We're grateful that the Rebbe was born. That's it. It's gratitude. We're thankful that Hashem chose to send the Rebbe here to this world. We're doubly thankful that Rebbe was sent to this world for us in our time. And that's it. We're grateful. We want to celebrate. It's a day of celebration, a birthday celebration, giving gifts to show our celebration, our gratitude. That's what it is. We're grateful.
I always tell my kids that it's at least at some point in the Dalf Nissan, it's going to be sunny. Kabbalah by Chassidim. I don't know if I've ever heard it from any Chassidim, but sun always shines on the Dalf Nissan.
At some point.
Some point. And there's always a big question that I always had. The Rebbe in the Sichas Dalf Nissan thanks those that sent brachas and wishes.
Yeah.
I was always wondering, and this is more as a bacher, I was wondering, a bacher
Who are you to give the Rebbe
sends
bracha?
a wish to.
Right. Right.
So I recently, I remember as a bacher, a friend of mine told me that his grandfather, Nachman Sudak, he asked him this question and he gave him a whole hadracha. And I asked him recently, I didn't remember what it was. I recently asked him what it was and he had no recollection of the whole thing.
Oh, no.
So, what do you think?
That we should send well wishes and brachas to the Rebbe. I mean, I have a thought about it, but it's really definitely not a quote. It's more my personal thought. I mean, I guess I could share it.
We won't quote you.
Don't quote me. Yeah, exactly. I'm not quoting, so don't quote me. We were speaking about the idea that the Rebbe educated us how to think. So don't just repeat the quotes. Learn how to think, and think like the Rebbe. And a lot of Chassidim get nervous. Oh, you're going to think like the Rebbe? Who are you to think like the Rebbe?
Famous Lubavitch words.
Who are you?
Who you?
Well, who you? Right? Who are you to think like the Rebbe? So my only question to you, my friend, is then who would you like me to think like? Who would you like me to think like? And if your answer is don't think at all, I'm going to go to Chagas. This is Chabad. I got to think. So who do you want me to think like? So the Rebbe gave, this is just my unauthorized opinion, the Rebbe gave Rebbe training. Rebbe training. The Rebbe took things that the Frierdiker Rebbe told him because that's what you tell a Rebbe in training. The Rebbe told us. Many such examples. Birthday is one of those examples, by the way. The fact that the Rebbe made birthdays a thing for all, that's a Rebbe thing. So Rebbe should think, birthdays. And I think Shlich Sha'adam Kamaisei is a literal thing in the Rebbe's worldview. And I think that we are, I mean, the Rebbe said about the Hishana Rabbah, said, non Aleph, jede Yid hat die Keich und Hispashtus von Titul Admur. Right? Why? Because every son of the Tzemach Tzedek says Admur in the Hayem Yem. Yes, and I would have concluded from that also the same thing. No, I would have never come up with that, but the Rebbe taught it. And once the Rebbe teaches it, you start to realize, you start to extrapolate, you start to understand. Okay, so the Rebbe is saying that there's a whole other level that Chassidim can be lifted to. And this, that it didn't happen before in history. Okay, you could say the same thing about Chassidus itself. Why didn't it exist before? And the Rebbe answered that question because it wasn't needed. The more needed it is, okay. And that's why if the Alter Rebbe went to prison and he was already acquitted, so why did the Mittler Rebbe have to go to prison? Because he pushed it further. Why did he push it further? Because it was needed more. Okay, I do believe the Rebbe revealed something in Chassidim that was never revealed before. I think the Rebbe bestowed things that normally Chassidim would be nervous about and call it Rebbe Shestav. I think the Rebbe gave it to every kid. One of my big pet peeves, by the way, talking about just repeating what the Rebbe said about Yud Beis Pesukim, and you look in the original Farbrengens, Rosh Chodesh Iyar and Lag Baimer 50 years ago, and the Rebbe didn't say the kids should memorize the words. The Rebbe said they should learn the concepts and teach them to other kids, because the whole concept of Mivtza Chinuch is not to educate children, but to turn children into educators. And that same year, later, Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe said, somebody wrote to me and said, where did I get such a crazy idea of making children into educators? And I said, well, you never heard the Gemara about Kamagodo Meiser Rebbe Chia? That the whole Torah was going to be forgotten. Rabbi Chia went and he took kids and he made them educate, one kid for each Chumash, one kid for each Seder of Mishnayos, and he restored the whole Torah through children. So, yeah, I think that the Rebbe gave us or brought out in us extraordinary powers. And I also think that when someone gives you a gift, the polite thing is to use it. It's not nice if someone gave you a gift, especially a gift that's connected with a lot of time and effort. So for the Rebbe to download all of that holy information and make it available, and then to not use it, it doesn't show sufficient appreciation. So yeah, I think that's part of it. Just my personal opinion.
Okay. Asher Kayach and Agat Yom Tov.
Yeah, Yom Tov. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.